How you feel today isn't based on what you've done today. It's not based on what you did yesterday. It's based on the cumulative amount of stress that has built up over the years. It really does do that. If you had a camera and you watched me, you'd be like, what are you so tired from? What are you so exhausted from? You didn't do anything, as if the only way we can burn up this energy is by the excessive external doing. We just end up horizontal and swiping and then judging ourselves for that. And it feels like you're stuck. It feels like you can't make any movement, like you're like stuck in molasses and you want to move so badly and you just can't get yourself to move, and you know what to do and you know what you want to do, and you cannot get yourself to be able to start. And then we live in this culture that's like, do more, lock in, get the perfect body, get the perfect job, go as hard as you can, do all of these things. And you're just like, what is wrong with me? The answer is nothing is wrong with you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Real Work Podcast today. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about something that I think we mislabel oftentimes. I have been a coach for a long time, and I always saw this come up with clients, that they would look at themselves and think that if they weren't getting something done, if they weren't being productive, if they weren't accomplishing their goals or making progress towards something, it must mean that they are lazy. And I never bought into that. I never bought into laziness being the way we described it. I always knew there was something underneath it. And I think that we're stopping too surface level when we just call it laziness. Like, oh, I'm just lazy. I think laziness is actually extremely rare, that someone is just lazy. They just have no motivation, no drive. Because even if that's the case, they have no motivation and no drive. Why? There's a reason for that. The reason is never just laziness. Laziness is kind of a front for whatever's going on that's deeper. And this is a missing piece that I didn't understand for years, that I think contributes to the belief that we are lazy. And that is that we are using all of this energy internally, and that what we're actually dealing with is an overstimulation issue, not a laziness issue. And this is just one way to look at this. There are lots of things that contribute to what from the outside would look like as laziness, but I want to speak about it from this specific angle today, because we all live in a culture that really prioritizes the output that we have. Like, we determine our laziness based on what we're doing and what you can see me doing and what I've produced and what I've done. But we're not taking into account the inner load and the impact of the inner motor and how that's moving at such a high rate. So let's kind of talk about what overstimulation feels like. And you can kind of check in with yourself and ask yourself, is this how my body feels? Is this how I feel most of the time? Because I think the majority of us are living in a state that is chronically overstimulated and contributing to a lot of the other chronic symptoms of dysregulation that we're experiencing as well. So it feels buzzy and kind of like this fried feeling, and simultaneously feeling wired, like kind of anxious and fried, while also feeling tired and exhausted. It's kind of like your body is hitting the gas and the brake at the same time, which it's an awful feeling because you're so exhausted, but you can't sleep. There's this background hum of stress even when nothing is happening. It's that hypervigilance feeling of like, I need to be doing something, which really has us always doing anything but being where we are at. And it is this overarching feeling that I don't have any capacity for the normal daily stressors. Life has daily stressors. Having a job, having kids, having a relationship, having a life comes with daily stressors. Things happen in life that are going to add stress. But unfortunately, because we are all living in such an overstimulated state, we have no capacity for that. We're all living so close to that edge that all it takes is like one thing to set us off, and we're already over the edge. And the key is that you have to remember that for most of us, our system is maxed out before we even start our day, because we're starting it in such overstimulating ways, like getting on our phone immediately, jumping into worry and panic as soon as our eyes open in the morning. But I think we need to explore why there is such a massive jump from being lazy to, instead of just seeing it as I'm overloaded, Like, this isn't a laziness problem. It's the fact that there's so much going on. And instead of judging the laziness, why don't we explore the overload and explore the overstimulation? I believe that this primarily stems from productivity culture and this expectation that if you don't have something to show for your time, then everyone just assumes you didn't try. And so we're constantly fighting up against this drive to get things done and produce and have something to show and be as productive as we can. And we can really only maintain that for so long. I made a post on my TikTok about this theory that I have about perimenopause and how I'm just seeing this cycle play out over and over, that so many women are hitting a breaking point in their 40s where they just can't keep up the show anymore. They can't keep up the masking. They can't keep up the people pleasing, the internal motor, the being so productive and needing to just go and show up for everyone else. And there's like this breaking point where it seems like perimenopause is the issue, but the real issue is that it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not that, but that is the triggering event for extreme symptoms that we're now equating to the hormonal change, when really it's just kind of like the hormonal change. Our nervous system is so sensitized from being so buzzy and so overstimulated all the time that it kicks everything into high gear, which is why people are experiencing such extreme symptoms. Again, I'm just a lady on the internet. It's just a theory. And this video has so many views and so many comments of people saying, yeah, that's exactly what I experienced. So it's important that we understand we have a really big resistance to appearing lazy, to being called lazy, to being observed as being lazy. And so we overcompensate for that by never letting that be how we show up as. And then if we get into that state where we're more in a freeze state, where we're not being able to keep up the functional freeze, where we look like we are performing and being the good girls that we need to be and getting all of our chores done, when we move out of the functional freeze state into the just freeze state, then we're lazy. Then we don't understand why we have no energy. And that's kind of what I'm talking about today is this internal overstimulation that's happening. Because a lack of output does not mean there's a lack of effort going on, even though that's kind of the connection that we made. Overstimulation burns energy more quietly than external effort does. And the way you'll know if this is happening is because you feel exhausted without having done anything visible. This just came up on a coaching call very recently and I've fallen into this myself as well, where I'm like, what are you so exhausted from? You didn't do anything, as if the only way we can burn up this energy is by the excessive external doing versus this internal combination, really, because it's the overstimulation, it's the worry, it's the hypervigilance, it's the overstimulation all the time we're on our phones, all the time we're absorbing stuff, the environments we spend time in, and the way our internal environment has to process all of the input and the lights and the sounds and the screaming and it's a lot. And so there's a lot happening internally. You can feel exhausted without doing a ton of external visible things. And it can be easy to say, you have no excuse for this. And that's the same type of conversation we're having when it comes to the overworking and living in that functional freeze for so long. It's like, you don't deserve to be tired. You don't deserve to be exhausted. You don't deserve to be fatigued. You don't deserve that. You didn't do anything. It's like we need to justify that. And the only meaning making our brain can come up with from it is you're lazy. When really the truth is you burned out your capacity long ago. There's nothing left. And essentially we need to rebuild that capacity by reducing some of this internal input and external input and rebuilding that capacity for you. That's the goal. The goal is capacity and resilience. It's not necessarily calm. And I'll do a whole nother episode on how the goal of all of this isn't to just be calm all the time. It's to be able to face whatever comes up and for it not to put you into a hole. So I think we misunderstand kind of what the freeze response is. Because like I said, functional freeze looks like from the outside, you're doing everything you've got to do, you're going, but inside things are shut down. You're in shutdown, but from the way everyone else can perceive you, you're working, you're taking care of your kids, you're doing everything you've got to do. But when it moves into the lazy mode, which would be called freeze, freeze isn't being calm. It's having this full internal activity going on without the outward movement. So for me, what this looked like in my life was staring at my phone all the time. I think so many people can relate to that. Like we just end up horizontal and swiping and then judging ourselves for that. And it feels like you're stuck. It feels like you can't make any movement, like you're like stuck in molasses. And you want to move so badly and you just can't get yourself to move, and you know what to do and you know what you want to do, and you cannot get yourself to be able to start. And then we struggle with a lot of shame spirals because you think you should be able to just force yourself to do it. Like you know what to do and you're not doing it. That's another thing I hear a lot. I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. And if we take it just at that surface level, it seems like, well, what's wrong with you? What's the problem? Versus going deeper and asking the deeper questions of, okay, if the answer wasn't that you're lazy, what else could be true here? What else could be going on for you that brings in a little bit of compassion and gets a little bit deeper here? And we start kind of tugging at the roots a bit more. So internally, it's going to feel like your heart racing, your muscles bracing for impact. I talk about that all the time. In your mind, it's going to feel like a lot of looping thoughts, a lot of the same type of conversations and the same type of thoughts and the same fears coming up and looping on repeat. And your body and brain stuck between I should move. Should is never super helpful for anything. And I can't. I should, but I can't. Like it really, I think this is the epitome of people saying they feel stuck, because stuck isn't really a real thing, but that doesn't mean it doesn't feel extremely real when you have these physiological processes going on that are saying you need to slow down, you need to freeze, you need to conserve. We're maxed out. And we're not doing the things that help us to regenerate that energy. And we're not doing the things that fill us back up. So we're constantly running on nothing and then just draining. It's like we're getting into this energy debt. And at a certain point, whether it's perimenopause, whether it's an illness, whether it's a flu, whether it's a surgery, whatever it is that kicks this over the edge to the point where it has to be looked at, it's all doing the same thing. It's saying we don't have any more capacity. You've been running on empty for too long. And there may be a moment where you have to look at this a lot more seriously because you don't have another choice. So freeze is when there's like an energy expenditure internally without the action. And that is why it feels draining. So I really want you to be compassionate with yourself. I know it's hard to look and be like, but my house is still messy. My kids are still this. My this is still that. Like things like I don't have any reason to feel the way I feel. And you may feel that is true right now, but I want you to look at your history. I want you to look at the last 6 months, the last year, the last 10, 20, 30 years, and stop looking at exactly what's happening in this moment to describe what you're feeling. It's far more likely that it's everything that got you to this moment, not this moment alone. It's how you feel today isn't based on what you've done today. It's not based on what you did yesterday. It's based on the cumulative amount of stress that has built up over the years. It really does do that. The body does keep the score. It keeps the receipts for you. You don't even have to worry about that. It'll just keep it all for you. And there's a cumulative effect. So how you're feeling right now is based on decades, most likely, of everything kind of compounding. So the body will show that overstimulation even when you're not doing anything. The tight stomach, the jaw tension, breathing really shallow, or holding your breath. I noticed I used to breathe from like, I wouldn't even say my chest, I would say the bottom of my neck. It was just so shallow. And now I know when I'm feeling really calm and I'm feeling really good, I'm breathing very naturally from my diaphragm. And I have become so good at taking deep breaths naturally. I do Marco Polo with one of my close friends, and she just notices when I just naturally, because before it was like holding my breath and just like literally living from this neck up. And I always felt behind. I was always rushing through any task that I was involved in at the moment. I had brain fog. I was really irritable, very short-tempered, and we judge ourselves for that. We're like, why am I so angry? Why am I so impatient with my children? This is so challenging, and it's hard not to blame ourselves, but it's like, this is the snowball, basically. Like, it started long, long ago. For you, it may have started when you were 3, like me. And it just slowly over time became this big thing. And we need to kind of melt that snowball down. I had 0 distress tolerance. And I think that's something we all struggle with in a major way these days. We don't have the ability to feel anything uncomfortable. Something funny my client said a couple weeks ago was like, but I feel uncomfortable all the time. Isn't that so hard? Because it's like, yeah, but feeling uncomfortable all the time isn't the same as being good at feeling uncomfortable. That is most of our natural state, but we have such a low distress tolerance that any discomfort throws us over the edge. And part of the problem is that we constantly live in this state of discomfort and bracing and overstimulation and being just so tightly wound that it becomes a constant problem that we don't have. Like I said, you're living so close to that edge that anything tips you right over. And that is going to lead to you feeling very low capacity, even for small life things. I had a client on a call who said, like, my pizza fell apart and I lost it. And those are the type of things we should have the distress tolerance for, but we don't. And it doesn't matter if it's pizza or we get fired from our job. Our system should have the capacity to have a reaction and be like, it should be frustrating, right? It shouldn't be meltdown causing. And I don't say that to shame anyone. I'm saying the fact that it does cause a meltdown, the fact that it does cause you to just lose your patience and explode, or whatever that looks like for you, shows we are running on the smallest thread here. We don't have any space. And that's good to know, because we are getting signs from our environment that something needs to change. And it's not easy work, but having capacity translates to feeling equipped to be alive, feeling equipped to live this life, feeling equipped to deal with the things that life will throw at us. Because for me, what really pushed me over the edge at the end of 2023 was the fact that I had no capacity. I was already living in this state of catastrophe all the time, always afraid I was going to lose everything and that things were going to go bad, and everything looked great from the outside, but I was like, I was not doing well on the inside. And when I developed all this chronic pain and stopped sleeping and my perfect storm of events, I was like, oh my God, I have no capacity for this. So I went to a very deep, dark, hopeless place very quickly, because I had already been so chronically dysregulated and sensitized and stressed and catastrophizing that something like this was like, I had no capacity to deal with it. And we will have tough stuff. We will lose people that we love. We may deal with serious illness, parenting challenges. There are all kinds of things that add stress to life. And when you're at capacity, you have no capacity to handle the normal things, let alone the catastrophic things that can happen. So calling all of this lazy is hurting you. It's not being supportive to what's actually happening, and it's preventing us from getting to the bottom of what's really happening, because all this does when we label it lazy is it just causes us to shame ourselves. And it ignores the reality that your system has just been overworked That's it. Your system has been overworked. This isn't a performance issue for you. It's not that you're now underperforming. Your system is overworked, and it has been overworked for decades. It is not a laziness problem, although it may feel like that just because you're so frozen at this point. And it creates shame, which creates more freeze, which creates more bracing, and it creates a smaller life. We begin shrinking everything because life starts to feel like too much. And we're talking standard life. Like I've brought up over and over in this episode, like life has its stress. But the more bracing that we have, the more we shrink our life, the more life feels dangerous, and the more we confirm to our brain that we need to stay on alert and we need to protect ourselves. And we do protect ourselves by staying in that fight, flight, or freeze response. Freeze is a protective response as well. And what I have seen over and over is watching women move from functional freeze to full-on freeze. And it's a hard state to get out of. And we can begin moving out of that freeze. One of the things that we can do is start addressing the constant overstimulation that we are experiencing, both the overstimulation and the overworking internally and the overload from our stress, from our overthinking, and from our constant stimulation. Look at your life and ask yourself, what am I experiencing in my life that is overstimulating? The biggest thing for me was my freaking phone. A lot of people who follow me also have businesses. And when you are creating content online, or you're just a human that lives online and you're looking for your notifications and the feedback and the comments and the analytics and the news and the scrolling and the doom scrolling and all that, you are giving your system more information that it needs to process. And it's a way that we are constantly keeping our system scanning, and it has to, everything it sees, it has to go, is this safe or dangerous, safer, dangerous, safer, dangerous with every swipe. This is one of the biggest things that I have changed that has lowered my baseline. So if my baseline is lower, that means I have more capacity. It means that my window of tolerance is wider. I am able to tolerate more in a more graceful manner because I can get spiked and I can come back down much quicker now. We don't want a calm nervous system. We want a resilient nervous system. So we don't want to be creating more shame by calling this something different than what it actually is. And you will, if you do, you are going to miss the chance to actually deal with the real problem, which is the overstimulation. That needs to be addressed. And when you understand this, you'll realize that your energy that you had for all those years didn't magically disappear. It just kind of ran out. Our bodies, like no living organism was ever meant to live in a chronic state of stress for an extended period of time. We have our nervous systems because we're supposed to be able to react to a threat accurately, first of all, and ours are so sensitized that they're reacting inaccurately. But we're supposed to react accurately and then be able to come back down to baseline. And once you're sensitized, your system has kind of lost the ability to do that. So when you realize that and we stop calling it laziness, we bring in compassion and we understand what's really happening. And then we stop trying to force ourselves out of it, because as you'll find, you're going to be very unsuccessful with that forcing energy. So for me, what happened when I realized this is I got a lot more clarity. I got more capacity. I had much less of the shame spiraling and the judgment, which is something I'm still working through every day. And I had more compassion for how hard my system was working internally, based on my history, based on my trauma, based on everything that I had been through in my life, and based on the way that I was also actively keeping this alertness and this vigilance and this overstimulation alive and well, by the way my life looked, by the way my behavior and my choices looked, with how I spent my time, and how most of the ways that I spent my time were in doing. And even being busy, and then finally not even having the ability to be busy anymore, and being very internally busy because I was constantly just taking in. I had my AirPods in, I'm on social media, I'm doom scrolling, I'm researching, I'm doing all of these things that are just keeping that baseline state still alive and well internally, even though I wasn't doing it externally anymore. So, this isn't a laziness problem. This is an overwhelm problem. It's an overstimulation problem, and it's an overworking of your system for so many years problem. So if your body is spending all of its energy on survival, of course you don't have the energy for the external tasks. And then we live in this culture that's like, do more, lock in, get the perfect body, get the perfect job, go as hard as you can, do all of these things. And you're just like, what is wrong with me? The answer is nothing is wrong with you. Your system has just been going at 12 out of 10 speed for as long as you can remember. And the system begins shutting down at a certain point, which you may be at that point. You may be heading toward that point. My goal is to help you if you have hit that point, and my goal is to prevent you from hitting that point if you haven't. I just want to say very quickly, I am not currently taking clients right now. And I'm in the process of creating a new program that is very specifically focused on nervous system dysregulation and more so nervous system sensitization and setting the right foundation with slow regulation, soft shifts that are able to support whatever work you're doing with nervous system regulation. If there's one thing I know, it's that people tend to use many tools, many teachers, many techniques, and the foundation is wrong. And that was a hole that I fell into for a very long time, which prevented me from making any progress and kept me spinning out, frantically commenting on people's, YouTube videos and DMing coaches and hunting people down who had recovered from anxiety and pain and all that kind of stuff. It kept me from doing anything but getting better. So if that is something you are interested in, if you resonate with my content, if you would like a chance to learn what I teach and have the chance to ask me questions, make sure you're on that wait list. I'll make sure that it's in the description, but you have to learn to stop fighting yourself. You have to learn to start supporting your overstimulated system. And once you do, everything shifts for you. And that's the main work that I want to help people with right now, because it's tough out there. And the combination of what we have going on in our bodies and what's going on in our external worlds needs to be studied at this point. And there are shifts that need to be made. And I believe those shifts can be soft. They can be gentle. That doesn't mean they're going to be super easy and effortless, but this work is so worth it, because living life with no capacity is hell on earth. Your body turning on you, hell on earth. And there's foundational work that needs to be done that it can just make everything easier and finally get you on a path to getting better. So I appreciate you guys joining me for this episode, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.